Good afternoon guys and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to anyone, or welcome over from anyone who's come over from James Robinson's channel.
I can't believe I've lost that.
It's been a convincing victory with the 7-wood, James's most hated club. We have got a child with us. Today what we're going to do on my channel is, I get a lot of people ask about different ways to play bump and runs. I use a 7-wood. Some people say I use a 7-iron. James said he uses his 8-iron. Some people say pitching wedge. So we're going to have 2 or 3 short.
Is there a right or wrong?
Is there a right or wrong? Again, there isn't a right or wrong on this. It's depending on what you're confident with, what you practice a lot, what you are comfortable playing in different situations. There is some situations where you might need a pitching wedge for that little bit more loft and then get it into a roll. There might be then situations where you can get it into a roll quicker and you might use a 7-wood or even a 5-wood. So James is going to play some different shots. We're going to go with a pitching wedge, he's then going to go with an 8-iron, and then he's going to go with a 6-iron, all against the trusty 7-wood, and we're going to see what it does. So again, technique-wise, when we're trying to play a bump and run, James will demonstrate that now. He's going to get a little bit closer to the ball, he's going to have the heel of the club off the ground, he's going to be back in his stance, and then from there, he's just making a motion with no wrists. And you see that is a pitching wedge there, and you see how low that is launched.
Go on then.
Unfortunately, that might actually
that's one up. He's not getting inside that.
Be very hard to beat.
You know what? There though, you were talking me through like the fundamentals of it, and I find that I honestly think I have an underlying issue
in life,
in life, but also with bump and runs, that I just duff them, and I think I get the ball too far back, don't present any loft to them. Like that one didn't go at chest height, but it didn't need to do. It just needed to come out kind of shin height, didn't it? And then grab a little bit on the first bounce.
Depends how high your shins are. Anyway, so yes, we've talked through that, and what I see a lot of times is people will get the ball too far back in the stance, too much forward shaft lean, and they'll dig the leading edge. So even the pitching wedge will come out very low. Another problem that I see is people get too far away from the ball, so even with a pitching wedge, they're here trying to play a bump and run. You wouldn't know if they're playing a short shot or a 100-yard shot. So we want to be closer, get the shaft taller, heel off the ground, back in the stance, and the same here with the 7-wood, and then no real wrist set, turn, and get that ball.
Just didn't factor in the break.
That is ridiculously good pace control, but shocking green reading. So when you are playing a bump and run, don't forget to read the greens.
But that's why I prefer using a bit of loft, because what I've done there is I've taken out a lot of this undulation and then known it's gone in at the end.
Yeah, and that's it. If you're comfortable with the pitching, if you're comfortable with a pitching wedge even, then that's something that you can use. If you're comfortable with an 8-iron, you can also go there. But we just know, obviously, the difference between these clubs, as James showed you with his 60, is, and he will with his 8-iron in some way, is a lot more bounce on the 7-wood. So it's very much harder for you to duff that shot. We're going to get the ball rolling forward, and that's what we see a lot of the times is people catch it heavy, it just dribbles in front of them, and they hate bump and runs.
The real big difference between the 7-wood and the pitching wedge though is about 12 feet. One up.
8-iron, up there. So a shot here, downhill lie. I've picked a tricky one for James. James is now going to go to his 8-iron. And a lot of the times James would get his 60-degree out, try and land it here, and a lot of people would, because you're above the green, you're trying to think, right, I need some loft, I need some landing angle, but we can get that rolling down the slope and towards the hole a little bit more consistently.
Land it like there, like just in front of it.
And we can get it right in front of us here, just get it going, and that's going to roll down. There's a lot less risk with this shot.
Oh, that's nonchalantly good, isn't it?
Actually nearly read the green quite well there.
Yeah, Dimitar Berbatov-esque that.
Oh, it was. So very nice and easy there. All the bounce there, just be able to skim that ball, get it into a roll. But James is going to go 8-iron.
James needs to hold this for a half.
So more difficult here because James has to get the contact. He's going to launch a little bit higher and onto the downslope. So is that going to kick it forwards? And it did.
It wasn't a bad shot, was it?
Wasn't a bad shot. Because it landed, it had to land into the slope, into the grass. It seemed to kill that a little bit. So again, second time James landed that a little bit further, and it nudged mine out of the way. You see a much harder shot because he's having to land the ball onto the slope. We can't predict how it's going to kick off there, whether it's going to go left, whether it's going to go right. With a 7-wood.
The shot I played there was almost no man's land, wasn't it? I think it was either 7-wood like you, or hybrid or something, or an actual wedge and land it here. depending how comfortable you are with it.
Yeah, and that's it. The 7 wood just gets it into a roll, and that's why.
God, if you left it there just on its own, just like
Back to level. Where are we going?
top of the slope and down.
Top of the slope. Right, so 1-all. I'm going to let James lead the way with his 6-iron here. So all downhill here, so it's about getting this running and controlling how fast it's coming off the face.
So landing zone wise, I'm thinking here.
So again, landing it on the middle of the downslope and then relying on a bounce. And this is what I'm trying to show here, is that a lot of people use these irons, but sometimes you'll have to land it in a tricky area, which you're not going to be able to dictate what it does.
Like that.
So that landed a little bit earlier.
Still not, you know, like say if I got a wedge out now and played that, it's still not terrible, is it? This isn't going to count, but I just like to see, after having learnt it.
Always learnt it.
That was too far though, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's it. That was a great line. It flew to exactly where you wanted it to, but we can't decide how fast that's going to come off. So get a similar lie.
Yeah.
Less backswing needed. Just able to get that going. It is something you need to practice, like we said on James's channel with a 7 wood. It's not easy to know how fast it's going to come off the face, so it has to be a club you've had for a while and you intend to keep. I know there's a lot of people who like to switch and change, but I find it's much easier to get the control off this face instead of a hybrid.
How long has that been in your bag?
This has been in my bag, I took it to America, so over 15 years.
Wow. This is probably more difficult because you've got to send it into that slope.
Yeah, so we're trying to get it running up this slope, and this is where, again, an iron, I'm not against it. If you're comfortable with it, use it. Think about your landing zone. Your landing zone is key on here if you're playing that. Same as if you had a 60, we'd be looking to probably carry it all the way onto the green, whereas here I'm looking at this ball bouncing first, probably just in front here. Something that I can control a lot easier than I can with any other club.
Yeah, nice.
And gets that rolling up there, so that gives myself a relatively good chance of making the putt, but also that eliminates the duff.
The duff, man. If you want to see a duff, watch this. Check it into that slope at the back.
See, now James is already picking shots because he's bored.
I am bored of this. I am bored.
He's not got his 60. And this is why I was the wizard on the card at Dundonald. So James has gone for the slope.
It's not high enough up, but it's not bad.
Yeah, so yeah, again, just like when he's got his 60, he's trying to manipulate shots with it. Thanks, James. I'm going to take that as another victory on both channels.
But I agree with you. I totally agree with you. But I think there's a time and a place. But you also, the time and the place is once you've practiced it and you know it. Because if you don't practice it and know, like, I sometimes think, you know what, I should definitely play. And we're kind of going a bit off-piste here, aren't we? But say if I play in something and I'm like, oh, I need to go up and down here, I go, oh yeah, well, I should definitely play a bump and run here. But I never play a bump and run, so I do that. And it goes a million miles past. Oh. I really didn't want that to go.
James is just making my point even better. Now he's going to try and whack one.
No, I'm not.
Oh, there he goes. He's magically got the hits on that one. Guys, thank you very much. As always, it was great to have James back, sulking because he's not able to use his 60. I'm not sulking, I've
really enjoyed myself. Thank you, guys.
James is just collecting those ones he's thinned on purpose, but very valid point that he did make was that you do need to practice this. You do need to have a club that you're confident with. So you can use a pitching wedge, you can use an 8-iron, you can use a 6-iron, but make sure that you're comfortable with that.
Oh, watch this one.
Your 7 wood will get a lot more bounce, so it's a lot harder to miss-hit it. Again, a hybrid is another good option. 5 wood and 3 wood are a little bit harder because it does come off a little bit faster, but get them around the green, practice those shots, and I'll see you again later in the week.